Thanks for joining our Neoway's webinar today. Today, our topic is about smart metering communications solutions. Smart grid technologies will contribute to improve the efficiency and the reliability in the energy distribution and better optimization in the allocation of the resources and the utilization of assets. After several years development, Neoway was kept #1 positioning in China for last 14 years. And since 2021, Neoway won the #1 positioning in India. Neoway also won some big opportunities in Europe region since 2021. Then let me introduce our agenda. Today's webinar will last for 1 hour from 10 a.m. to 11 CT time, including 3 sessions. First part is the industry background introduction. Second part is the story of Neoway and the smart energy. The third part is the energy industry communication challenges and solutions. You can put your questions in the chat room while speaking. We will answer you one by one. Then the speaker will be handed over to Christian. Welcome, Christian, to start the speaking. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jenny, and thank you everybody for joining our webinar today. We have prepared a presentation for you. I hope you can all see my screen because it should be sharing right now. Just a quick check. Can everybody see the screen? Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Perfect. Good. Yes. Yeah. Again, thank you very much for joining. As you know, Neoway has been conducting these webinars on a frequent basis over the last couple of years here. This is a way for communicating on a more frequent basis with our customers and new partners. It's a way to also share what we do in terms of development and product positioning. In this case, and today, we're going to talk about smart metering and talk about how we position a range of our smart modules to this market. So again, like Jenny said, feel free to ask questions during this. I will be going through these slides here, and what we could do is, again, feel free after the slides also to run questions. We have the team available here, and we can for sure answer those. I can see somebody's actually putting, can you put, okay, that's perfect. Good. So let's start. So like Jenny said, we have an agenda today about a little bit about the industry, a little bit about the story and smart energy, and then we're going to go into the industry communication challenges, and then just summarizing that with a little bit of information about Neoway for those of you who maybe forgotten stuff or are new to this. And we will also take you a little bit through our company and how we do things. First of all, so why do we need smart grids? So as you all know, the changes in the world has actually put a significant pressure on energy, and we use energy in a much wider scale than we used to do. We used to warm up our houses with gas and other alternatives, but now with everything that goes on with conflicts in the world, we are now using and getting forced by governments to use power. We charge our vehicles with bikes. I mean, everything is using power. So this puts a lot of demands into the utility companies and into the grids. So how do you actually make sure you have sufficient power available? How do you handle the demands, the peaks, and how do you communicate with your customers? And this is what we're going to talk to you about today: the benefits of having a two-way communication in this market segment here. So it's going to be a little bit about the market to begin with, but a little bit I'm sure you are familiar with. But let's go through it here. So traditionally, the smart grid was all about you having power plants providing energy, and then you would basically have a meter installed, and you will then just consume the power. You would, back in the days, maybe call in or fill in a card, send it back, and then at that point in time, you will get an invoice and you will pay for this. The energy price would be the same. You will pay a subscription to be connected, and there might be some taxes on that. Now, what happens now is that we have seen the market be deregulated, which means that now you can actually have different power rates depending on time of day, the weather, and things like this that impacts the amount of power because power is now being traded. And that's why you can actually go in and make deals with your power plant and make ways of actually reducing your power. But you can also start to do some smart thinking of when is the right time to charge my car. Should I charge it in the morning? Should I charge it during the night? Where is the power the cheapest? Or can I actually wait to charge it on Friday because it's going to be a windy day and I know that we're going to have a lot of power available from the grids. So all of that requires a very intelligent system where you communicate between the customer meter and the customer and the grid. So all that needs to be two-way communication and not like in the old days, a one-way communication. So this is what we can do now with the cellular technologies. We have the possibility to now communicate real-time data back and forth between the grid and the user, but even though also add the additional thing that we didn't have before by actually advancing that data into the end user. So we can now have smartphone apps that can actually follow our usage, our demands, and all of those things. And then we can make some smart decisions on our own, trying to reduce power, reduce cost, and optimize our daily living. So the benefits are clearly, all the network optimization. How can you make sure that everybody has power when they need it? I'm sure we all know that, especially in Europe, Christmas Eve has always been a little bit of a laughing joke that everybody's putting the roast in the oven. Everybody's having a lot of lights and all of those things. The demand is massive, and sometimes you see utilities having issues with that. Those problems are disappearing because now there is a much better understanding on the consumption and how people are using it. And that's why you can now start to actually scale up and scale down depending on this. We also know that the meters are typically installed and are sitting in the market for about 15 years. It's very expensive for utility companies to go out and change meters. So that's why it's important now to make sure that when you got and put the next generation meters out there, you look further ahead than just 5 years. You need to look into this. So that's why it's important to be on the forefront of the technology, and it's very important to deploy meters that actually gives you the possibility of adding features along the way. So when you install those meters here, you optimize obviously the user experience, but you also optimize the whole building. You optimize, like we talked about, the smart grid, but you also optimize the grid's possibilities of actually trading in a more efficient way, which is also a very important thing for the utility companies out there right now. The market has been growing rapidly, as you can see from these graphs here. This shows clearly that smart electricity meters are growing rapidly, and the meter market for gas and water is following the same trend. And this is because the old meters, again, some of them had some low power radio there, but it's only within the last, I would say, 15 years, we started to see the rollout 20 years, we started to see the rollout of cellular. But now with the transition of the different cellular technologies, we also see that there is a new role coming out because 2G, 3G, as you all know, are disappearing, and we are moving into other technologies right now, 4G, narrowband, 5G, etc., which puts a new market demand in terms of what the meter manufacturers have to deliver. But equally, it also puts demand into changing meters that has been installed. So the market is growing significantly, and I think this is why it's important to have a range of modules and services around this so we can help customers during that phase, because it is a critical phase where you have to decide what technology are you going to lean up against, what even on silicon, what provider do you need to have different providers, and then the final thing is where do you deploy? Do you deploy all of them in the same region, or would you actually be faced with having to support deployments maybe in Australia or in the US or in Brazil, where you could have other technologies there? So this is what we're going to talk about when we come to the product part. The smart metering market in Europe has been growing rapidly. And if you look back, you have seen some significant rollouts over the last 20 years. Some of the very first big cellular deployments started back in 2004. I remember I was involved in a big rollout in Helsinki, in Finland, where we deployed 360,000 meters with Iskremiko back then. So even back then, it was interesting. But again, those meters with a 15 years lifetime needs to be replaced with new meters. And at the time, that was a 2G module with GPRS. And now we are talking about other technologies, as you all know. So the swift development in IoT here is also putting a lot of demand on roadmap. It puts a lot of demand on the media manufacturers And not to forget things like the whole part around RF. How do you tweak? How do you optimize RF? As you know, meters are not necessarily installed the best places. So the whole piece about having very good RF and things like this is also demanding, because you cannot have, specific modules and specific antennas for each meter. A lot of these meter manufacturers have different meters, whether it's a prepaid meter, whether it's a smart meter, it's a free phase meter or whatever. You have different meters. So the whole market there also demands a lot of support and focus and knowledge around this before they can actually start the integration. These are some of the examples here. So as you can see, we have electricity, we have water and gas. All of the above here has the possibility of actually being smart grid. Now, the key thing here is we don't use a lot of data on these. I mean, we're not talking about massive data transfer like what we see on the smart vehicles, where we start to transfer videos and streaming, things like this. These here are much less data. So we have other technologies that are more suitable for this, because we really don't need the big bandwidth. What we need is just values and meter ID. But as the time goes on and we start to add services to this, you will probably see even that demanding in terms of other use cases. But more or less, we can actually use smaller bandwidth here, lower power consumptions, and obviously a more integrated and more embedded design. Smart metering, rising communication. So as we have talked about here, it's all about communicating, and the good old PLC, power line communication, which was actually headed up by Echelon, where you have used the existing power lines to actually communicate on. That was a one-way communication string that was then replaced by RF and then moved into the cellular. The cellular solution for us obviously is our focus area. Having said that, the PLC is a very efficient way of doing it, but it does have limitations. PLC has been developed further, but still there are limitations. And when we see this, we see the need. And when we talk to customers today, there is a huge desire of having cellular, because it's kind of adopted now to being the technology to be used in these solutions, as well as many other vertical markets, as you know, in IoT. The trend is as one part is extremely interesting for us. The second part is very challenging for us. For Neoway, we have been putting a lot of energy of being on the forefront when it comes to new technologies. For us, it's all about having the latest technology available, but not only that, having the bandwidth and the solution that actually gives our customers the access to not just one market, but multiple markets. And as I mentioned briefly a little while ago, is that you can have one chipset provider focusing on one way, that could be Qualcomm, but you can also have others focusing on other configurations and modules. And one of the decisions we've taken in Neoway is to support 3 different silicon vendors. So we have today our Qualcomm, we got Unisoc and ASR. And this gives us the flexibility to have different configurations and make sure that our customers have the possibility to pick and choose the right module for the right market. And again, making sure that support the customer requirements at the very end. But as you can see, just over the last 5 years here, how fast things are moving, and this keeps put pressure on us. Everybody on this call are being faced with those questions every single day. What is going to happen? What is the right decision for me right now? What is the duration for that technology? What happens with this? What happens with that? It's a very difficult situation to be in. So I'm sure you like we feel sometimes. It's about more like being a consultant for the clients to help them to make the right decisions. We have seen over the last couple of years also a lot of trends in the SIM card stuff. Clearly, the complexity of antenna designs is putting a more pressure there, not to forget even things like designing power supplies and making sure low power modes and all those things are available. So it is a challenging market, and it's important that when we enter these markets that we understand that we need to deliver more than just a module. We actually have to deliver services around this, and also consulting and knowledge around the market.